Public hearings are tentatively scheduled for May and September, and we hope to develop a warrant article for October town meeting and a ballot question for the November 7th national election. We realize there's a significant cost that accompanies this report, and sincerely hope that you will take time to attend all these public hearings and give your input and listen to the pros and cons to the proposals. There was a great amount of time and a great amount of energy put into all these meetings over the past year, and I personally would like to thank the members of the committee and the commissions that attended all these hearings. Some were a lot of laughs and some weren't a lot of laughs, but I can honestly say that the people did all pull together at the end, and we were able to bring this report to you that we had promised to you to bring to you last May at this time. So with that, I would like to conclude on this report. We are not going to be taking any comments from the audience. We are going to refrain from that and allow that any input that or any questions at the public hearing meetings. So thank you.
The motion Thank you. The motion before the meeting is to accept the printed town report for the year 1999 as the report of town officers and committees, and to hear other reports as may be presented at this meeting. You have heard the report of the facilities usage management project. This is not, the vote on the article does not mean that you're approving or disapproving of what they are recommending. It merely means that you are accepting their report as having been presented to town meeting. Having said that, we will now proceed to a vote on the motion. All those in favor of accepting the report, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. We have received, if you'll allow me a moment here to, I'm like Jerry Ford, I can't walk and chew at the same time. We have received from the Board of Registrars a certification on today's date. This is to certify that a quorum of 150 voters required to conduct business at a special town meeting under Section 2.4 of the general bylaws for the town of North Reading is present, signed by 3 members of the Board of Registrars. So therefore, at this time, a motion would be in order to adjourn the annual town meeting until after completion of the final article on the special town meeting. May I have such a motion, please? Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I'll move that we'll adjourn this present town meeting until after conclusion of the special town meeting.
With the promise to get it in writing, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Okay, so let the record show that we are calling the special town meeting to order at 7:32 p.m. on this third day of April. And I would like to advise my tellers that there is at least one person in the audience who is checked in for the special town meeting but not for the annual town meeting. That person or those people have green badges instead of yellow, and they should be counted when any votes are counted. Mr. Smith. Thank you very much. Article 1 on the special town meeting. That is on...
Mr. Moderator,
Mr.
I move
Smith.
to raise and appropriate the sum of $285,000 to amend the fiscal year 2000 school department operating budget as specified in Article 1 as printed in the warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Jones, Sr.
The Finance Committee recommends, Mr. Moderator.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, the Board of Selectmen recommend.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the motion is to raise and appropriate $285,000 for the purposes stated in the article. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Article 2. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $22,922 to be transferred to the Retirement Trust Fund.
Heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Jones Sr.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Mr. Smith.
Board of Selectmen recommend.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to pass over Article 3.
You've heard the motion to pass over Article 3. Is there any discussion? Mr. Smith?
Mr. Moderator and ladies and gentlemen, the reason we're passing over this article, the application for the grant was not put in a timely manner, so we had to pass over.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of passing over, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $218 for the purpose of paying fiscal year 99 bills.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Jones Sr.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends. This is a small bill that was a workman's comp situation, and it took a while to determine that it was not covered by insurance.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Mr. Smith.
Board of Selectmen recommend.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous.
Point of order.
There's a point of order. Mrs. Jenkins.
I just have a question on Article 1. I know we finished it, but did I hear the funding source to be raised and appropriate? Would that not put us in an override situation for the prior year's bills, as we've already spent the maximum on the tax? And should that not have been a transfer from the Chapter 70 funds?
Technically, it's not a point of order, and it relates to an article that's already been dealt with. I will take a quick answer to the question, but I will not accept a lot of debate on it. Mr. Jones, can you answer Mrs. Jenkins' question quickly?
In brief, during this current fiscal year, the original Chapter 70 funds were level funded. There was an extenuated House, Senate, balcony conference committee that did not arrive at an agreement until November. And at that time, there were additional Chapter 70 monies voted for this year in the sum of $307,922. Those Chapter 70 monies flow into the town and then have to be reappropriated. They're not automatically flowing to schools. So it is within this current year that this $307,922 of Chapter 70 money was received and is being approved. It has nothing to do with the current fiscal year budget that we're dealing with tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Smith, are we ready to adjourn the special town meeting?
Mr. Moderator, I move we adjourn the special town meeting.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of so adjourning, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Article 3. We are now calling the regular town meeting back into session, and we are ready to proceed with Article 3.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Smith.
I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to accept easements on behalf of the town as specified in Article 3 as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is a routine and standard action for the town floor. Finance Committee endorses it.
Any further discussion? Mr. Smith.
Board of Selectmen recommend.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion under Article 3, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Article 4. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to authorize the treasurer to enter into compensating balance agreements as specified in Article 4 as printed in the warrant.
Heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Jones, Sr.
Finance Committee recommends, Mr. Moderator, again, this is one of those annual articles that we have to engage in.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Mr. Smith.
Board of Selectmen recommend.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5K, as specified in Article 5, as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Jones, Sr.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Selectmen recommend.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Smith.
I think this does deserve a little discussion. What this is, it allows a rebate in the taxes of elderly people. We've been having that $500 program that was been in place for about the last 4 years, and you'll see later on in the warrant that that article will probably be passed over if, in fact, this particular article is approved. What happened was when the elderly people worked and earned the $500, they had to declare that on their income tax returns. By passing this particular piece of legislation, it eliminates that action, and we can simply give them a rebate of $500 and eliminate paying them the $500 and then giving it back. Okay?
Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, main motion under Article 5, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Moderator, I move to accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 32B, Section 9E, as specified in Article 6, as printed in the warrant.
You've heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Jones. Mr. Burton, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If I could, I would like to show a slide explaining the position that the Finance Committee is taking. Okay. Thank you. I just went blind. Bill said you're already there, Steve. First of all, we'd like to thank the Finance Director for his data to reach a conclusion on this. The current premiums that we paid in FY99, i.e. 2 years ago, were $144. This leads to a 40% increase. That would take that one up to $202. If you look, that's a 57, i.e. $57,000 or a 40% increase. The projected for this coming year would be $67,000. We are facing a budget tonight, as most of you know and start through the process, that $67,000 would be a chore to come up with. We not only have to come up with it for this year, but each of the subsequent years as a function of whatever the rates turn out to be. Therefore, the Finance Committee recommends and encourages a no vote on this article.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Mr. Smith.
The Board of Selectmen recommends this article 4-0 with 1 abstention.
Any further discussion? Mr. Smith.
Ladies and gentlemen, the way this particular article came before the board was via an ex-principal of the middle school, Mr. Jim Lazenby. He was a principal and a school teacher in the school system for quite a few years. And for about the last 3 years, he's brought the attention of the board to this particular article, and it's never got on the agenda. Well, this year it did. This particular Board of Selectmen felt that Mr. Lazenby has been right over the years. The additional cost is a factor. However, there is enough money in the insurance account, presently in the insurance account, to cover this additional cost. There's an additional $80,000 to $85,000 available in that account. And the Board of Selectmen's position was that the money is available. We don't have to go to free cash. We don't have to raise and appropriate, but simply use it out of the available funds that are in that account. The other issue here is presently